Rain hammered against broken stained glass as midnight closed in. The abandoned mission reeked of smoke and fear. In the center of the nave, a woman's muffled screams tore through the darkness. Julia, bound to a chair, the jagged sun symbol glowing red above her chest. Detective Evan Calder had seconds to move, sweat mixing with rain on his face. His gun shook in his hand, not from fear, but from the crushing weight of déjà vu. 10 years ago he had failed, and the same symbol had haunted his every nightmare since. From the shadows, the voice of Rowan Bell slithered through the room, calm and merciless. "You're too late, shortstop." The propane hissed louder. Flames licked the iron. Julia's eyes pleaded through the gag. Calder lunged forward, knowing every move could trigger the final spark. This is The Ashes of Midnight, a full detective crime thriller audiobook. Chapter 1 begins. The storm had been pounding Chicago for hours. Rain hammered against the rusted fire escapes and pooled in the potholes along West 13th Street, where neon signs flickered and hummed over shuttered liquor stores. Sirens wailed somewhere in the distance, fading in and out like ghosts. Detective Evan Calder pulled his coat tighter as he stepped out of his sedan. The crime scene tape flapped in the wind, a yellow ribbon struggling to hold the darkness back. 2 uniforms were posted at the alley entrance, their boots soaked, their faces pale. Calder flashed his badge without a word. "Evening, detective," one officer muttered, his voice uncertain. "It's bad in there." They always say that, Calder thought. But this one feels different already. He ducked under the tape and stepped into the alley. The stench hit him first, wet garbage, burned flesh, and something sharp, chemical. The shadows seemed heavier than they should have been, like the city itself didn't want him to see what was waiting. The body was slumped against a graffiti-smeared wall, rainwater streaking across the skin. Young woman, mid-20s. Her clothes were half burned, charred around the edges. Across her chest, a crude symbol had been seared into the flesh, a circle split by jagged lines, like a broken sun. Calder crouched, his knees aching as always, and studied it. "Jesus Christ," he whispered. The medical examiner, a wiry man named Dr. Kessler, stood nearby, adjusting his gloves. "Never seen anything like it. 3rd-degree burns, but localized. Someone branded her while she was still alive." Calder's jaw clenched. His stomach rolled, but he forced it down. He'd seen worse at least, he told himself he had. But this was ritual, purposeful. Time of death, 2 to 4 hours ago. Rain's messing with the scene, but she didn't die quick. Calder nodded grimly. His gaze drifted to the woman's hand. Something was clenched tight in her fist. He carefully pried the fingers open. Inside was a small metal token, scorched black but intact. He wiped the surface clean with a handkerchief. It was a coin, heavy and old. Etched into one side was the same jagged sun symbol. On the other side, scratched deep into the metal, were 2 letters. E.C. Calder froze. His throat went dry. "Something wrong?" Dr. Kessler asked. Calder slipped the coin into an evidence bag, masking his face. "Nothing, bag it." But inside, his heart was pounding. E.C. his own initials. The rain eased as more detectives filed into the alley, snapping photos, marking evidence. Calder stood back, watching the scene blur through the mist. He could feel the past reaching for him, cold fingers dragging him backward in time. 10 years ago, there had been another case, another body, same mark burned into the skin. He had chased it for months, obsessed, certain he was close. Then it had all collapsed. No suspect, no trial. The brass pulled the plug, called it unsolvable. And Calder had drowned himself in bourbon until his marriage split. His career teetered, his reputation rotted. And now, here it was again. Lightning split the sky, briefly illuminating the alley, like a flashbulb. For a second, Calder swore he saw a figure at the far end, someone watching. He blinked, and the alley was empty again. Just shadows and rain. He muttered to himself, "You've got to be kidding me." An hour later, Calder sat in his sedan, windshield wipers slapping back and forth. He stared at the evidence bag on the passenger seat. The coin seemed to glint even through the plastic. He pulled out his phone. His thumb hovered over a number he hadn't dialed in years. Detective Marissa Vega, his old partner. She'd been there during the first case, the one that went cold. She'd warned him then, "If you keep digging, it's going to bury you." But before he could press call, a notification buzzed across his screen. Unknown number. A text message. He opened it. Just one sentence glared back at him. "Round 2, Evan. Don't miss me this time. Calder's chest tightened. He looked up, scanning the rain-smeared streets around him. Every shadow felt alive. Every window held eyes. The storm outside roared louder, but Calder barely heard it. The past wasn't just back. It was hunting him. Chapter 2. Echoes of the Past. The rain tapered off just before dawn, leaving the city slick and reflective. Every streetlight doubled in the puddles. Evan Calder couldn't sleep. He didn't even try. He watched the text message glow in his dark apartment like a lighthouse for the damned. Round 2. Evan, don't miss me this time. He set the phone face down on the kitchen table and stared at his hands, at the faint tremor he pretended not to see. The coin sat in an evidence bag beside a half-drunk glass of water. He lifted the bag, felt the weight of it through the plastic solid, deliberate. On one side, the jagged sun. On the other, EC. He remembered a different kitchen table. The mess of case files and photos. A woman's voice, ex-wife now. Just Julia in his memory, standing in the doorway in a robe, arms folded tight. Evan, it's 3A.M. It'll make sense if I just... No, it won't. Not if you keep looking at it until there's nothing left of you. He'd stared at the black and white photo of a girl burned into silence and found nothing that made sense. The case had gone cold. Everything else had followed. He turned the phone back over. The text was still there. Of course it was. Calder pocketed the bagged coin, grabbed his jacket, and headed out into the grey morning. The precinct woke up, slow fluorescent lights buzzing alive, stale coffee pouring, a printer grinding through paper like it hated every word. No one said good morning. Cops know when to leave a man alone, and Calder wore last night's alley like a second coat. He dropped by evidence, signed the bagged coin into temporary lockup with a scrawl that barely looked like his name, then pushed through into the bullpen. The caseboard on the far wall had nothing on it, yet just the blue painter's tape frame where a story would be told. Nice hour to be a legend, a voice said, dry as Midwestern winter. Calder didn't have to turn around to know it was Marissa Vega. He turned anyway. She looked the same and different all at once, same sharp eyes, same coiled posture like a runner at the blocks. New hair cut blunt at the shoulder, a few silver threads she didn't bother to hide. A scar along her jaw he hadn't seen before, not jagged, just a thin white line like an underline you couldn't ignore. Hey Vega, you look like hell. She tilted her head. Again, been busy, yeah, I heard. She flicked her eyes toward the empty board. They got you on it. They will, he said. She studied him for a few seconds, then held out a paper cup. Drink, not the good stuff, but better than the sludge downstairs. He took the coffee. You bring that for me, or for whoever staggered in first. Don't flatter yourself. She let it hang a beat, smiled just enough to admit she'd missed him, then nodded toward a quiet corner. Talk. They stepped into interview 2, the one with the mirror that wasn't a mirror, and a table that had seen more confessions than the archdiocese. Vega closed the door and leaned on the wall, arms crossed. I saw the prelim, she said. Female, 20s, burn pattern, weird insignia. You thinking what I'm thinking, that we've done this dance before. You're sure it's the same dance? New details. He slid the evidence bag across the table. Vega's eyebrows lifted a fraction. She didn't touch it. The coin, Calder said, found in her hand, same symbol. And the other side. I can read, she said softly, eyeing the letters. Hell of a calling card. I never saw coins on the first one, he said. You didn't see a lot of things the first time, she said, not unkindly. Neither did I. They stood there with silence stretching between them, a bridge that held and didn't, both of them remembering the case that drowned a decade. Back then, they were new partners, sharp and hungry. The victim's name was Leila Montrose. He could still see her smile in the photo taken at a street fair. Could still hear the sound of the zipper when they closed her into a bag. You remember the symbol? Calder asked. Like a migraine. Vega stepped to the table and opened the folder she'd been carrying. Inside, a photocopy of the original mark from 10 years ago. Strukel, jagged rays, not sun exactly, not star, an idea burned into skin. She set it beside a print of last night's wound. They were cousins, or twins. It's not gang, she said. Not one I've met. Calder said, Kessler will confirm pattern transfer. That thing was pressed into her hard. Vega nodded. I heard a rumor back then, college kids playing cult at DePaul, calling themselves the Ember Circle. But rumor's rumor, and we never had anything that stuck. Ember Circle. Calder tasted the words. They sat bitter on his tongue. I heard whispers too. And I heard Reverend Rowan Bell was hosting midnight youth vigils. You wanted to pull him in, Vega said. Brass didn't let you. Brass said I was taking my grief out on a pastor whose main sin was a bad haircut. She smiled despite herself. It was a bad haircut. The door opened without a knock. Lieutenant Nora Harrow stepped in, compact and watchful, a stack of forms under her arm. She was the kind of boss who could make a whole room stand up straighter without saying a word. She didn't smile either. Morning, detectives. Her gaze clicked to the photos. You planning on winning me a press conference or ruining my breakfast? Depends what you eat, Calder said. Harrow gave him a look like she was deciding whether to laugh or demote him. We don't know yet if this connects to your old war story, she said, but the optics rhyme. That means pressure. I want clean work. No solo cowboy tours. No cutting corners. You hear me, Calder? I hear you. And if this gets personal? Harrow asked, eyes sharp. If someone's baiting you, I'll keep it professional. See that you do. She nodded at Vega. You two are on it. Write me a plan by noon. Chain of custody tight. Outreach to the family. Respectful. We're not just solving a case, we're managing a city. She left the way she came, a gust of command. Vega watched the door close. She's not wrong, I know. Which is why I'm asking you now, Vega said, softer. You're not the same guy you were 10 years ago, Evan. That's good. But if he pulls on those old threads, don't let it unravel you. He almost said too late. He said, I got a text last night. Vega's eyes flicked back to him. From who? Unknown. Round 2, Evan. Don't miss me this time. He took out his phone, opened the message. He knows me. Or he wants you to think he does. Either way, he's reaching. You tell Harrow. Calder hesitated. Long enough for the truth to be obvious. Vega's mouth twisted. You need to, she said. If this guy is poking you, the department needs to know where to watch the fence line and get pulled off the case before I can help you. Before I can help her. He nodded at the photo of the dead girl. No, this isn't a movie, Vega said. You hiding messages isn't heroic. It's dumb. And it's discoverable. Defense chews on that. Our case bleeds out. He wanted to argue. She wasn't wrong. She was never wrong when she got that look. He tucked the phone away. I'll tell Harrow, he said. After we catch up the family. Vega studied him, then gave a short nod. Okay, we do it clean. The victim had a name now. Noelle Harper, 26, graduate student in urban planning. Lived in a basement apartment in Pilsen that flooded when it rained hard. Her mother met them at the kitchen table of a small brick bungalow in Belmont, Cragen. Hands locked on a mug she didn't drink from. Eyes red and focused like a person trying to learn a new language in a single day. Vega led, gentle but precise. Calder watched the house, the family photos on the mantel. 2 girls in soccer uniforms. A Thanksgiving turkey the size of a small car. A dad who wasn't in the room. There were crucifixes and receipts tacked on a corkboard, rent due. A dentist appointment circled in red. Did Noelle mention anyone bothering her? Vega asked. Anyone new in her life? Everyone loved Nellie, her mother said. She studied too much. She worked at that coffee shop on Holsted. She wasn't into anything weird. Did she carry anything with her? A keychain, jewelry, anything missing? She had this little necklace, the mother said, fingers going to her throat between prayers. A silver circle, but it's not worth anything. It was from her sister. A circle, Calder thought. Too broad, too common. Still, he noted it. They kept it short. Compassion gives you 10 minutes with the newly broken. After that, you're taking their air. Outside, the sky had turned white with morning. Vega exhaled a long breath that clouded in the cool air. It never gets easier, she said. It's not supposed to. He checked his phone. No new messages. For a second, he felt ridiculous, like a kid waiting for the bully to pick him first. Then he hated himself for the thought. Next stop, Vega said, Noelle's place. See who she was when she wasn't a headline. Noelle's basement apartment smelled like wet paint and coffee grounds. The landlord let them in and hovered too close, the way people do when they're afraid of what you'll find. Calder scanned the shelves, textbooks on transit design and environmental justice. A battered paperback of The Long Goodbye. A potted plant losing a slow battle in the corner. Her laptop sat closed on the table. There was a corkboard above it with pinned snapshots, 2 friends at the lakefront in summer. A flyer for a tenant rights meeting. A strip of photo booth pictures with a guy wearing a beanie, both of them laughing. In the corner of the corkboard, a small sketch, a circle with jagged lines, done in pencil, smudged, like she'd tried to erase it, and couldn't quite. Vega, he called. She joined him, looked where he pointed. He took a photo, bagged the sketch. Maybe she saw it somewhere. Maybe someone wanted her to. They found nothing overtly helpful. No threatening notes, no diary that said if I die it's past a bell. But Chapter 3, Suspects and Shadows. The Sun House looked like every other wellness studio Calder had seen pop up across Chicago over the last decade. Whitewashed brick reclaimed would sign a window filled with crystals, essential oils, and smiling stock photo models, frozen mid-yoga pose. But the logo above the door, the half-sun jagged rays, made his stomach knot. It was 3:55 p.m. when Calder and Vega stepped out of the unmarked sedan and crossed the wet pavement. Harrow had wanted backup, uniforms parked discreetly down the block. But Calder knew the killer wasn't going to stroll in the front door for an arrest. This was a game, and the Sun House was just the board. Inside, the air smelled of incense and lavender masking sweat. A young woman at the front desk, wearing too much turquoise jewelry and not enough suspicion, smiled automatically. "Welcome to the Sun House. Are you here for a class, or Chicago PD?" Vega cut in, flashing her badge. Her voice was calm, but it carried a blade underneath. "We'd like to ask you a few questions." The receptionist's smile faltered. "Of course, I'm sure." "About what?" Calder's eyes swept the lobby. Flyers on corkboards promised healing, rebirth, fire meditation. A narrow hallway led to rooms where muffled voices rose and fell, some chanting, some laughing. "Do you recognize her?" Calder held up Noelle Harper's photo. The receptionist's face pinched. "Yeah, she came to a few sessions, mostly the group circles. I didn't know. Is she okay?" "She's dead," Vega said evenly. The girl's hand flew to her mouth. "Oh my God, when was the last time you saw her?" Calder pressed. A week ago, maybe more. She came to the fire renewal circle. Wednesday nights. Fire renewal." Calder's knuckles tightened. "Who runs those circles?" "Pastor Rohan Bell," she whispered, as if speaking his name carried weight. "He's not really a pastor, you know, but that's what everyone calls him." Pastor Rohan Bell had the presence of a televangelist, even in sweatpants and a t-shirt. He was tall, broad-shouldered, hair silvering at the temples in a way that made him look intentional, almost regal. His voice carried like honey, poured slow. "You think I had something to do with this young woman's death?" he asked when they confronted him in his office, a room lined with books on theology, psychology, and half a dozen self-help titles with his name on the covers. "She was here," Calder said flatly. "You led a ritual called fire renewal. She turns up burned. That's more than coincidence." Rowan folded his hands, perfectly calm. "Detective, my work is about healing trauma. Fire is symbolic, cleansing, rebirth, light breaking through darkness. We burn sage, not people." Vega circled the room, eyes scanning the shelves, and the symbol, the circle with the broken sun. "That's not symbolic." Rowan's lips curved, like a man caught in a clever trap he could wiggle free of. "It's a spiritual emblem. Represents breaking free of cycles. It's been around for centuries. Not mine to own." "Funny," Calder said. "Same emblem was branded into a woman's chest while she died." Rowan's gaze didn't waver. "Then you should be hunting a monster, detective, not me." They left the Sun House with more questions than answers. Outside, Vega muttered, "Guy's slick. He's hiding something," Calder said. "I can feel it." "You feel everything. Doesn't make it evidence." Before Calder could answer, his phone buzzed again. Unknown number. Another text. He opened it. "Nice visit, Evan. Hope you enjoyed the sermon. Time for Act 2. Attached was a photo. Calder's blood chilled. A woman, face blurred by motion, walking down a dim street. The timestamp said tonight, 9:12 p.m. Calder checked the time, 9:30. The victim was already gone. "Damn it," Calder hissed. "He's ahead of us." "Who is she?" Vega asked. "I don't know, but we're about to find out." An hour later, they stood over another body. This one in a drainage lot behind an old warehouse near the river. The same jagged emblem burned into her skin. The same ritualistic staging. Reporters swarmed the edge of the tape, shouting questions. Flashbulbs exploded against the night. Harrow's voice cut through the chaos as she stormed into the lot. "I told you to keep this under control," she snapped. "Now we've got the press circling like vultures, and another victim on my city's doorstep." He knew we'd be at the Sun House, Calder said, jaw tight. He taunted us. He planned this. Harrow's eyes burned into him. Then stop letting him lead you by the nose. I don't care what old ghosts you're chasing, Calder. I want answers now. Back at the precinct, Calder tacked the new crime scene photos to the board. 2 victims, 2 burn marks, 2 coins, both bearing his initials. Vega leaned on the desk. We've got 3 suspects already. The ex-boyfriend lives 2 blocks from Noel, has a temper. The landlord harassing her about rent. And Reverend Bell creepy as hell with a cult logo. Any one of them fits. Calder nodded, but his gut told him different. This wasn't random. This was personal. He stepped back, looking at the board. The faces of the victims stared back at him, eyes frozen in the last second before darkness. And there, taped among them, was the coin. His initials glaring at him like an accusation. He turned away, scrubbing his face with his hands. He's watching us, every move. He's ahead. Then we make him slip, Vega said. Yeah, Calder muttered. What if slipping's exactly what he wants? As if to answer, his phone buzzed one more time. He pulled it out, dreading what he already knew. The message read, tomorrow night, same time, different place. Try to keep up, Evan, and attached another photo. This one was a grainy still from security footage. A figure in a hooded jacket walking straight past the front doors of the precinct. On the glass door behind him, taped in place, was a note written in thick black marker. Catch me if you can, Evan. Chapter 4. The Second Fire. The note was still taped to the precinct door when Evan Calder and Marissa Vega got in at 6:10 a.m. White printer paper with the edges singed into a delicate lace of black ash. Someone had used painter's tape, blue and neat, like a contractor who cleaned up after himself. The words were blocky, thick, sharpy. Catch me if you can, Evan. Harrow had the front entrance roped off, and a forensics tech in booties photographing every angle, while uniforms rerouted foot traffic to the side door. Phones were already ringing. A Tribune stringer had tweeted a grainy shot of the note at 5:42 a.m., and the wolves were out. Crowd control and silence, Harrow said. She kept her voice soft, so it landed harder. He puts a souvenir on my glass, and I guarantee care, if he sanitized it in holy water nobody touches it. What do we have? 2 minutes of security footage, Vega said, pulling it up on a tablet. He knew the blind spots. Came in from the north where the streetlight's been out 2 weeks. Cap down, collar up, hands gloved. He stops in our dead zone, tapes the note, and pivots out of frame like he rehearsed it. Height, Harrow asked. 5'11", 6 foot, Calder said. Shoe looks like a work boot. Gait is steady, not limping, no hurry, and nobody saw a damn thing. Harrow exhaled through her nose. I'll give a statement at 9. In the meantime, I want you 2 on the second scene, and the ME, what you didn't get to last night because you were busy not sleeping. Calder nodded. Yes, ma'am. Harrow's eyes lingered on him. You tell me about any additional communications from this guy. If I hear about them from anyone else, you're off. I told you, Calder said. He texted, and he might again. Harrow cocked her head. We're mirroring your phone. Internal IT live. You'll get a pop-up to grant permission. Calder felt his jaw set, then felt it loosen. Pride was a luxury he couldn't afford. Understood. Go to Kessler, Harrow said. I'll meet you after the scrum. They left the note to the camera flashes and the murmurs of a city that loved a stage. Dr. Kessler looked like the last man who'd be late to a funeral shirt buttoned wrong. Tie crooked hair in mutiny, but he was a genius where it counted. He stood over the second victim under the chilled lights of the morgue, glasses sliding down his nose as he dictated. Victim is female, 28 to 30, he said. Identified as Daniela Donny Alvarez from her wallet. No defensive wounds. Sedation likely. Burn pattern is near identical to our first Vic localized. High heat contact, same sunburst symbol pressed into dermis. Levor suggests she was moved post-mortem to final position. Vega and Calder stood at the stainless table. Calder watched Kessler lift Dana's arm, reveal a small puncture in the crook of her elbow. Injection site, Kessler said. I'll confirm with tox, but I'd bet a breakroom donut on ketamine. Source? Vega asked. Could be veterinary, could be medical. Dosage will tell us if the perp eyeballed it or knew his syringes. I'll call you when I've got the full panel. Calder's gaze drifted to the brand, clean, deliberate, like someone had pressed metal to skin with steady hands and no heart rate. Time of death, between 8 and 10 p.m. last night. The rain complicates. He worked quick, and this, Vega asked, holding up a small evidence bag Kessler had set aside. Inside was another coin, scorched, like it had been heated and cooled too many times. We found it tucked beside the victim's spine, Kessler said, like a token under the pillow for the corpse fairy. Calder stared at the bag's faint glinter, jagged sun etched on one side, his initials gouged into the other. His throat went dry, and he kept his face plain. Kessler peered at him. "You look like you swallowed a tack." "Long night," Calder said. Kessler nodded, unconvinced. "One more thing," he added, pointing with a gloved finger at the burnt emblem. "See the micro blistering around the rays? There's a seam." The brand wasn't a single piece. Modular, rigid segments attached to a plate, which means it could be assembled, taken apart, hidden, Vega said, and repaired, Kessler said, and reconfigured if someone wanted to evolve their little sunburst. He pulled the sheet back up with the gentleness his job required. "I'll call on Tox," Vega said. "Thanks, Doc." As they walked out, Calder felt the cold of the morgue stay in his bones like a warning. Donny Alvarez lived in a two-flat in Little Village with vines gripping the brick like a drowning man's hands. Her sister met them on the stoop, arms crossed over a sweatshirt that read Pilsen Food Collective. She was a volunteer, the sister said, a doer, tenant rights, transit equity, that kind of thing. Calder thought of Noel's corkboard, the flyer, the faces. Did she know Noel Harper? She knew everyone, the sister said. But yeah, I think Nellie came to a meeting. "Where was Donny last night?" Vega asked. "She said she had a circle," the sister said, bitter. "Some breathwork candle thing," she said, helped her sleep. "Look, I told her it was silly. People in robes humming, but she said it wasn't a cult." "The Sun House?" Vega asked. "That place on the near west side. Anyone ever bothered Donny?" Calder asked. "Exes, landlords, anyone from these meetings?" The sister grimaced. "She broke up with a guy 6 months ago. Kyle Mercer, EMT, nice enough, until he wasn't. He didn't like how much time she spent on causes, thought it made him look bad with his friends." She glanced away. "When they first split, he texted a bunch, showed up once. I told him I'd call the cops if he didn't leave." "Address?" Vega asked. "Pen ready." The sister gave it with the relief of someone who wanted a name to pour her fury into. They found Kyle Mercer at an ambulance bay off Ashland, scrubbing a gurney with the intensity of absolution. He was mid-20s, tall, with the slouch of men who live under fluorescent lights. He flinched when they flashed badges. "You have to be kidding me," he said. "Donny's dead." "What happened?" "A homicide," Vega said. "Where were you between 8 and 10 last night?" "On shift," he said. "Too fast. Ask my supervisor." "We had 3 runs. A suspected OD on 31st, a heart attack on Ogden, and a BS lift assist for a guy who just wanted company." "Check the CAD." "We will," Calder said. "You keep ketamine on your rigs?" Mercer's eyes flicked. "We keep a lot of things." "And any of it go missing?" Vega asked. Mercer glared. "You think I drugged Donny? I'm not an animal." "We found a vile discrepancy in your unit logs," Calder said. "One less K than you should have, because the inventory system is garbage." Mercer's voice rose. "We waste doses, we toss them, we fill them. You ever do this job? You ever get told to work miracles with a budget from 2009? I didn't touch her." "Where were you after shift?" Vega asked quietly. He sagged home alone. "I watched the Cubs lose and fell asleep on my couch." "That help?" "It doesn't hurt," Vega said. "Don't leave town, Mr. Mercer." "What if I have to work?" He shot back. "Then answer your phone when we call." Vega handed him a card and walked away. Calder looked back at the kid and saw fear curdling into anger the way it always does. "Red herring or real," Vega murmured as they crossed the lot. "He's not our guy," Calder said, though he couldn't swear to it. "He doesn't have the patience to write on our door and walk away. Patience can be learned. So can contempt," Calder said. "He's got the second one in spades." The Sun House at noon felt different than it had at Forsun, streaming through tall windows. Yoga mats stacked like pastel tombstones. Rowan Bell met them in the hallway. No sweatpants this time, a jacket cut close, a string of wooden beads peeking from his cuff like a secret. "I heard about another death," he said, hands open. "Terrible. How can I help?" "By not wasting our time," Vega said. "You host fire renewal on Wednesdays." "I do." He smiled without showing teeth. "It's very popular." Where were you between 8 and 10 last night? Calder asked. Here, Rowan said. We had a grief workshop. 12 people can confirm. We also live-streamed the beginning for our online community. The recording is available. Convenient, Calder said. Truth often is, Rowan said mildly. Detective, I understand suspicion falls on the one who preaches about fire when the city smells smoke. But my circles are metaphorical. Calder let his eyes travel to a shelf of incense and resins, labels handwritten. Frankincense, he read. Myrrh copal. Rowan smiled. Ancient scents, they change the mind. I suppose everything does. Do you know Donny Alvarez? Vega asked. Rowan nodded. She attended occasionally, intelligent, agitated beneath it, the way brave people are. And Noel Harper, the planning student, Rowan said. Bright, searching. She asked me questions about old symbols. Wanted to know if we had a library. We don't, unless you count our bodies. Old symbols like this. Calder took a photo from his pocket, the pencil sketch from Noel's wall of the broken sun. Rowan's gaze rested on it, a beat too long. Popular shape, he said. People see themselves in it. Where'd you get it? Calder pressed. It's been around, Rowan said. Long before I rented this building, the neighborhood's a palimpsest. What was here before? He let it hang. You dig. You find layers. We plan to, Vega said. One more thing, do you know a group called the Ember Circle? That changed something small in Rowan's posture, a twitch as quick as a swallow. An urban legend, he said with a laugh that didn't touch his eyes. College kids playing robe in a basement. If you're asking if I ran a cult in 2014, I didn't. I was in Oregon writing a book that didn't sell. Calder looked at the beads on Rowan's wrist and imagined them looped tight around a throat. He tucked the photo away. We'll be in touch, he said. I look forward to being cleared, Rowan replied, which wasn't the same thing as helping. Back at the precinct, Harrow's press conference had run like a clean amputation brief, controlled, no adjectives. The press wanted a monster they could name, and a hero they could exalt. Harrow gave them neither. She gave them patience and process, and the reminder that law is not spectacle. It made no one happy, and everyone grudgingly compliant. In the bullpen, a tech named Jai Patel installed a monitor app on Calder's phone and laptop, eyes flicking between windows like a piano player. We'll mirror the texts, he said. If Mr. Anonymous writes, we try to catch a whiff of his root cell towers, an IP if he's careless, anything. He's not dumb, but people like this love their own reflection. They slip. Great, Calder said. When he slips, tell me before he dances. You got it, Jai said. Hey, also your note. He slid a small evidence summary across the desk. Paper is standard printer stock from a big box chain. But the edges weren't just burned, they were scented. Scented, Vega repeated. Burned with copal resin, Jai said. Sticky sap. Smells like lemons and churches. It's in that Sunhouse place by the scoopful. Calder and Vega traded a look. Rowan's shelf. Link is not proof, Vega warned. No, Calder said. But it's a thread. Follow it, Harrow said, appearing like she'd grown from the floor. And follow our paramedic. His supervisor confirmed the runs. CAD agrees. Inventory. The missing vial happened on his shift 2 nights ago. He signed off on a chart that could hide it. It's sloppy enough to be careless, not cunning enough to impress me. Keep him warm. Don't freeze him out. Yes, ma'am, Vega said. And you, Harrow pointed at Calder. Eat something before you go back into the tunnel. Sweets even. Keep the blood sugar up. People underestimate glucose. Yes, ma'am, Calder said. And for the first time all day, a laugh almost made it into the room. They ate vending machine granola bars that tasted like responsibility. Vega pulled up a map with Pinsnell's apartment, Donnie's last known, the Sunhouse, the second dump site, a rough rhombus across neighborhoods that didn't ordinarily speak to each other. What's in the middle? Calder asked. Vega zoomed. Industrial lots, an old mission church converted to storage, a shuttered community center with boarded windows. The Kepler Grove mission. Rowan mentioned layers. She said, what was here before? I'll put in a records pull. Calder's phone buzzed. He didn't need to look to know who it was. At the same instant, Jai's terminal chirped. Got an incoming, Jai said. Already typing. Unknown number. Encrypted chat app, routed through our clever bastard 3 hops and a VPN endpoint in Utah. Calder opened the message. Enjoying the incense. It calms the nerves. Check your car, Evan. Don't worry, locked it when I left. He and Vega were moving before the second sentence sunk in. They hit the lot at a jog. The unmarked sedan sat where they'd left it, rain drying to tiger stripes on the hood. Calder popped the driver's door and felt his skin goose as the familiar scent of lemony smoke breathed out. Back seat, center, a manila envelope. No name, no fingerprints on the slick paper when he lifted it with a pen. He slid it open. Inside one USB drive. White, unbranded Jesus. Vega whispered. Calder didn't trust his car stereo port. He didn't trust anything that touched the city. They carried it upstairs like it was wired to blow. In the tech room, Jai booted a sandboxed machine and plugged the drive in with tongs he probably stole from the break room. A folder bloomed on the screen. Midnight_001.mp4. Jai double-clicked. The video opened on darkness. Then a shape resolved the bedroom, lit only by streetlight through half-open blinds. The camera was low, perched somewhere by the dresser. The lens didn't move. The figure on the bed did. Evan Calder, asleep on his side. Last night's raincoat thrown over a chair, shoes on the floor. Holy Jai said, clapping a hand over his mouth. Calder didn't breathe. He couldn't. He watched himself roll onto his back, the rise and fall of his chest steady as an anesthetized patient's. From the frame's edge, a shadow drifted, someone standing just outside the camera's view, watching him sleep. 91 seconds in, the shadow stepped forward enough to show a sliver of sleeve, a glove. The shape leaned close to the lens and whispered, soft enough to make the hair rise on Calder's arms when the speakers caught it. Round 3. The screen went black. Nobody spoke. Even the building seemed to hold its breath. Vega moved first. He was in your apartment. Calder's voice found its way back, rough. He was in my bedroom. Harrow's reflection appeared in the glass, face carved from stone. Lock this down, she told Jai. No leaks. I want crime scene at Calder's place yesterday. We're sweeping every inch. Vega turned to Calder. You're not going home, I gathered, he said. He looked at the paused time code on the screen to 13 a.m. and felt something cold slide into place behind his ribs. The killer hadn't just mocked the department on its own steps. He'd crossed Calder's threshold, breathed his air, stood inches from his sleeping face, and left a promise in the dark. Chapter 5. Into the firestorm. By dawn, Calder's apartment looked less like a home and more like a quarantined zone. Crime scene had stripped it to its bone sheets bagged, mattress swabbed, vents scoped, every corner dusted for prints. They found nothing useful. Whoever had been inside knew how to ghost a room. No prints, no stray hairs, no tool marks on the locks, just the USB and Calder's own uneasy breathing captured on film. He watched from the hall while technicians in white suits came and went. His neighbors peeked through door cracks, whispering. He'd have to live with the gossip Detective Calder's place crawling with cops, like he was the suspect, not the badge. When the last tech peeled off gloves and shook his head, Vega put a hand on Calder's arm. You're staying with me. He opened his mouth to argue, closed it again. He didn't want to admit how the thought of re-entering that apartment, of closing his eyes there, made his chest tighten. Fine, he said. At the precinct, Hera was already waiting with a map spread across the boardroom table. Red string pinning crime scene photos into a crooked geometry. She didn't bother with pleasantries. He's in your head, Calder, and now he's in your home. We're not pretending this isn't personal anymore. Calder rubbed at the stubble on his jaw. It was always personal. Then get this straight, Harrow snapped. We use that. We don't let it use you. Understood? He nodded, but his silence didn't convince her. Vega broke the tension. We've got threads. The copal resin links back to the Sun House. Both victims had ties to activist groups that overlapped. And that old whisper about the Ember Circle, maybe. It wasn't just rumor. Harrow's eyes flicked up. What do you mean? Vega slid a folder across the table. Inside, old case notes from 10 years ago. Photos of the original victim, Leela Montrose. Scribbled marginalia. Among them, a reference Calder half remembered, writing rumors of student sect calling themselves the Ember Circle. Fire imagery. Symbol. Broken sun. Montrose was a DePaul grad student, Vega said. Now Harper and Alvarez grad students, tied to planning and activism. Different decade, same pattern, same age range, same symbol. Circle didn't just vanish, Calder muttered. It grew up, changed its clothes, or someone carried the flame, Vega said. Harrow's gaze hardened, then lighted up. I want names. They split the work. Vega went digging through university archives, pulling old newsletters and underground zines for mentions of the Ember Circle. Calder hit the streets. He started with the Southside Bar, where a decade ago he'd heard whispers about the cult college kids dabbling in ritual. The place was still there, dim and sticky as memory, but the bartender was new. Ember Circle, Calder asked, flashing his badge. The bartender snorted. Sounds like a craft beer. You want Malat? We got plenty. No lead. Next stop was Chinatown, where a community organizer named Mei-Ling Wu had once warned Calder about kids playing with fire. She was older now, grey streaks threading her hair, but her memory was sharp. You're still chasing them? She asked, handing him tea in a chipped mug. I thought that case killed your career. It tried, Calder said, but it didn't kill them. She sighed. We used to see flyers, meetups in abandoned buildings. They weren't all kids. Some were older, disillusioned. They wanted to burn the city down metaphorically, then literally. They used symbols to scare the ones who didn't belong. Anyone ever pull out of the circle? One girl, Wu said. A friend of a friend. She left because they got too serious, said they were talking about blood as offering. I never met her, but I know she moved to Madison. Name was Erin Sloan. Calder wrote it down. Still alive. Wu shrugged. Ask the university, or the cops in Wisconsin. If she's breathing, she'll remember. Back at the precinct, Vega was waiting with a stack of printouts, yearbook photos, club rosters, the works. Guess who pops up in the background of a 2013 Ember Circle photo? She slid the page across the desk. Calder's pulse ticked. There, half in shadow but unmistakable, was Rowan Belyonga. No silver hair, but the same posture, the same eyes. Son of a Calder muttered. Sunhouse is a shell, Vega said. The cult rebranded. He's still at the center. Before Calder could answer, Jai Patel leaned in the doorway. Got something. The USB metadata, embedded GPS data, sloppy. Last access logged 2 hours before Calder found it. Coordinates put it nearer. He tapped a map. The abandoned Kepler Grove mission. Calder remembered the boarded-up windows on the rhombus map. The center of everything. Vega exhaled. That's our nest. Harrow wasn't thrilled, but she signed off on a warrant. By evening, Calder, Vega, and a tactical unit rolled up on the mission under grey skies. The building loomed like a carcass, stained glass shattered, its steeple a jagged tooth against the skyline. Inside, dust and mildew thickened the air. The pews were shoved aside, leaving space in the nave. Symbols scrawled in chalk and ash covered the floor. Circles within circles, broken suns everywhere. Jesus, one officer whispered. Not here, Calder muttered. At the altar sat a metal branding iron segments bolted together into the jagged sun. The head was scorched black, still faintly smelling of resin and heat. Got it, Vega said, snapping photos. This is it. But Calder's stomach turned. Too easy. As if on cue, a phone buzzed. Not Calder's one of the uniforms. A number blocked, but the text hit every device at once. Thanks for visiting. Shame you're late again. Attached was a photo. Tonight's date. Tonight's victim. A man this time, mid-30s, gagged, bound to a chair. His eyes wide, pleading. The timestamp read 7:42 p.m. The mission clock above them ticked 7:51. Son of a bitch. Vega whispered. He's alive. He's here. The photo's angle. Calder turned, scanning the dark corners of the mission. His heart slammed. The picture was taken inside this building, and if the timestamp was right, a scream echoed from somewhere deep in the walls. The team snapped into motion, weapons raised, flashlights cutting through the dark. Vega's voice was steady but fierce. Move. Calder's mind raced. They were inside the storm now, and the fire was only just beginning. Chapter 6, Betrayals. They found the screams down a narrow corridor behind the vestry, a service hall that felt more like a vein than a hallway. Tight pulsing with the thud of boots and the high-clipped commands of a tactical team that didn't want to shoot a ghost. The scent of copal hung heavier here, lemon and smoke and church rot. Left, Vega shouted, her flashlight cutting across a stack of folding chairs. A second scream pinballed off concrete, not a recording. Wet, human fear. They burst into a boiler room, retrofitted into a stage. A metal chair sat center, bolted to the floor. A man mid-30s, zip-tied, gag-thrashed against restraints. To his left, a propane camp stove hissed beneath a glowing iron segments bolted into the jagged sun. The iron hovered an inch from the man's chest, suspended on a rail by a threaded clamp, like a dentist's light from hell. Someone had engineered this. Someone with time and imagination. Hands, I see your hands. Attack officer yelled to the shadows, but there was no one there. The room was empty except for the man and the machine. Calder lunged for the stove valve. Vega grabbed the clamp and held the iron away, while an officer sawed the zip ties with a rescue hook. The man's eyes rolled to Calder, mouth working behind the gag, tears cutting tracks through grime. Calder yanked the gag free. Elliot, the man rasped, voice shredded. Elliot Price, city inspector, medical. Vega barked, and an EMT pushed in with a bag, checking airway, pulse, pupils. The iron's glow faded to sullen red as the propane hiss died. Any other surprises? Calder asked, scanning the ceiling, the corners, every shadow. Camera, Vega said, pointing. Lens the size of a dime sat like an insect in the ventilation grill. A red light winked. We're live, Calder said. He's watching. On cue, a speaker hidden under a shelf crackled. A low hum came through, then a voice distorted into something neither human nor machine. You're late, Evan. Elliot Price convulsed with a sob. Calder stared at the grill until the red dot felt like an eye. Stay on the line, he said. Level. Talk to me and save yourself some grief. The voice didn't answer. Instead, somewhere in the walls, a relay clicked. The propane valve on the backup stove snapped open with a sharp metallic talk. Flame bloomed blue under a second iron they hadn't seen, tucked beside a column, the rail already extended, the clamp already wound to its final inches. Kill it, Vega shouted. Two officers dove for the tank, but a foot-triggered pressure plate under the chair squealed as Elliot shifted his weight. The second iron jerked forward like a striking snake, the tip kissing his sternum. A hiss, a scream, the smell of burnt meat. It wasn't deep knot, like the bodies in the alleys, but it was enough. Elliot sagged, eyes rolling up, shock overtaking pain. Calder took the plate under his own boot, easing the pressure. The iron stopped advancing. He could feel the tremor of the machine through the floor, like the building itself wanted a piece of this. Valve, he barked, and someone got it, twisting hard. The flame died, the room exhaled, but the red light stayed on. Somewhere, a man listened to a city hold its breath. Kessler's team got Elliot to county alive. It wasn't clean, he'd need grafts. He'd carry a scar like a brand, which it was. But he would talk if he lived through the night, and if the drugs wore off without taking too much of him with them. In the mission, crime scene worked in furious silence, documenting the rig with reverence, usually reserved for cathedrals. Calder stood with his hands on his hips, while they catalogued bolts, rails, clamps, the engineering of cruelty. Vega moved round him, low, methodical, voice steady into her recorder. Brand assembly appears modular, segments interchangeable. Sir, a uniform said, hovering at the edge of Calder's vision. You should see this. He followed the kid around a stack of pews to a folding table against the wall. On it, printouts, photos of Noel Harper, Donnie Alvarez, Elliot Price, photos of Evan Calder grainy, surveillance of him at the first alley, at the precinct door, asleep in his bed. Mixed in were older shots, a young Evan in a high school baseball uniform, a newspaper clipping about a local tournament, a photo of a 16-year-old kid in a cast, scowling for the camera beside a muddy rock quarry, his stomach clenched. He hadn't seen those pictures in 20 years. You didn't put these here? The uniform asked, as if that were a real question. Calder barely heard him. A zip-top bag lay among the photos. Inside, a pair of latex gloves. On the palm, someone had stamped a smeared print with black powder and taped a lab label to it. Jai Patel came jogging in, latex booties slapping concrete. You called. Calder pointed at the bag. Please tell me that's not what I think it is. Jai's eyes darted. He opened the bag with tweezers. There's a transfer pad inside. He lifted out a clear adhesive square, like the ones CSU uses to lift prints. Stuck to it was a ridge pattern that made Calder's skin crawl just to look at it. Who's? Vega asked, crossing the room fast. Jai didn't answer immediately. He'd already scanned Caldwell's prints when they mirrored his phone. He knew the pattern as well as anyone. He exhaled. Evans, he said softly. Right thumb. Vega swore under her breath. Could be a lift from a glass he touched once. Jai said quickly. Could be a duplication. You can print anything if you have the ridge detail and the patience. Or, A new voice cut in. It could be what it looks like. They turned. Internal Affairs had arrived with the inevitability of rain. Sergeant Lorraine Pike, all blade and bun and policy, held a clipboard like a weapon. Harrow stood at her shoulder, expression granite. Sergeant Calder said, "Detective," Pike returned. "You have a way of attracting drama." Harrow gave a small shake of her head to warn him off any sarcasm. Pike gestured to the table. "We have your prints recovered at multiple scenes. We have a video of an unauthorized visitor in your bedroom who left a device in your vehicle. We have you receiving direct taunts from an offender. Now we have what appears to be a transfer of your print in the offender's lab." "It's a frame," Vega said, voice tight. "You can copy prints with iRead," Pike said. "I'm not new." Harrow stepped closer to Calder. "We're not arresting you, Evan. We're not even charging you. But IAS recommendation is suspension pending investigation." The word hit harder than the rest. Calder stared at the brand, at the machine that had wanted a stamp in his shape, and felt the bottom tip under him. "I'm off the case," he said. "Not a question." "You're off the clock," Harrow corrected. It was meant as a kindness. It landed as a sentence. "You'll surrender your service weapon, badge, and credentials. If this is what you say it is, we clear it, and you come back clean. That's the only way I can protect the case." Vega looked between them, eyes sparking. "This is exactly what he wants," she said. "He wants Evan out so he can talk to him without us on the wire." Pike's gaze swung to Vega. "Speaking of wants, Detective, Vega, you have something to disclose." Vega stilled. "Excuse me." Pike held up a printout, a credit card statement. "You made a purchase at the Sun House 2 years ago. Grief and Renewal Workshop, $149. Calder's eyes slid to Vega. The scar at her jaw looked whiter against her skin. She swallowed. "I had a shooting," she said flatly. "A 12-year-old who pointed a replica at a store clerk. He froze when we shouted. I didn't. I put a bullet in the freezer behind him and scared a whole neighborhood. The kid went home. I didn't." She met Pike's gaze head-on. "I went to a workshop for 2 nights. I sat on a floor and breathed like an idiot and cried until my shirt was wet. Then I went back to work." Harrow's face didn't move. Pike's didn't either. "You didn't think it might present a conflict to withhold that from your CO. I didn't think a breathing circle 2 years ago with a guy selling incense would connect to a ritual killer today." Vega snapped. "And I didn't withhold didn't remember the receipt until you showed it to me. You want my diary too." Pike made a note. It could have been a doodle. It felt like a judgment. "Duly recorded." Calder's fists had curled without his permission. He forced them open. "Sarge, suspend me. Do what you have to. But Dan T sidelined the only person in this building who sees this guy as clearly as I do." Pike didn't answer. Harrow stepped in. "Lorraine, you have my assurance. Vega stays. I need this solved. We'll firewall her on anything Sun House adjacent." Pike considered, then nodded once. Calder, badge and gun. The walk to his desk felt like Main Street at noon. Heads turned. Conversations died. He unclipped his badge, feeling the dent where his thumb always rested, and set it on the desk with his sidearm. The clink sounded obscene. Vega's jaw flexed. "This is temporary." He wanted to say everything is temporary. Instead, he said, "Keep our guy busy while I nap." "You're not going home," Vega said. "No," he agreed, "but I'm not staying where he knows the furniture." Harrow reappeared, a softer angle to her voice. "Take a few hours. Then, if you so much as sniff this case outside a sanctioned interview, I'll put you in cuffs myself." Calder nodded. He meant it when he said, "I get it." He didn't mean it when he thought, "I won't stop." Vega's spare room smelled like laundry and old books. She tossed him a t-shirt from a municipal 5K and pointed him to the shower. "There's a lock on the door and a chair you can jam under the knob," she said. "Don't flatter yourself. My building is better than your building." He rinsed off a day he couldn't rinse off. A pale band on his ring finger caught the light and he looked away. By the time he came out, Vega had made something edible in a pan and was pretending it tasted good. "Got a hit from records," she said between bites. "Erin Sloan, the one who left the Ember Circle, did a name change in 2016. She's Erin Skoronsky now. Living in Madison. Married. 1 kid. She filed a restraining order in 2015 naming a John Doe tied to an unregistered group. The petition mentions branding practice. It got tossed on a technicality." Calder sat on the edge of the couch, mind-firing even as his body sagged. "You going to Madison?" "Tomorrow." "With Harrow's blessing?" She wants me to coordinate with MPD. Good. He stared at the wall, at a framed picture of Vega and her mum laughing at a quinceañera. You know he's going to call. I know. He wants me alone, Calder said. And he wants you blamed. She held his gaze. I don't rattle that easy. Not talking about rattling. I'm talking about how he choreographs. He knew you went to Sun House. He'll turn that into something. He can try. He was about to say more when his phone, personal now, not mirrored, a number almost no one had rang. Not a text. A call. Unknown number. The sound landed like a blade tip on the rim of a glass. Vega's eyes flicked to it. Answer on speaker. He tapped. Set it on the coffee table. Calder, he said. Silence. Then a voice without the modulator. A voice that was pleasant, almost gentle. The voice of a teacher, or a pastor, or a man who believed in telling stories around a fire. Evening, Evan. His name stretched in the air. Intimate. He swallowed. Who is this? You don't remember your own name, the caller said, amused. You were better than that at shortstop. The room went very still. Vega's eyes cut to Calder's. That nickname hadn't been spoken aloud in 20 years. He de-earned it the summer his father taught him to pivot on the dust of a park diamond in Joliet, calling across the infield, stay low, shortstop, stay mean. How do you know that? Calder asked, voice steadying by will alone. Oh, Evan, the man said softly, almost pitying. I know a lot of things. I know you broke your arm falling off the quarry fence in '92. I know. Maggie is buried behind the lilac tree, at your mother's old place in Romoville. I know the smell of your apartment when it's just rained and you left coffee in the pot too long. I know what you say to yourself when you can't sleep. Vega mouthed. Mute. Calder shook his head minutely. He wanted the man to keep talking. He needed the man to keep talking. I know Marissa went to one of Rowan's circles when she thought she'd broken. The voice went on silken. She didn't. She's strong. But she blames herself anyway. It's why you love her in the way you love people you shouldn't. It's why you'll follow her to Madison, even if they take your badge. Calder's spine turned to ice. He felt the room tilt. What do you want? He asked, because the only way out of the maze was through. A better game. The man said, you've been chasing fire with water. It's boring. Round 4 needs a spark. What's round 4? Vega said, leaning in, voice a knife. The man ignored her. Evan, do you remember what you told Leela Montrose's mother when you couldn't give her a suspect? You said, I won't miss again. You lied. But I'm here to help. I'll give you someone to miss. A click. The line didn't go dead. It pivoted. A new sound bled in muffled crying. Then a woman's voice, small and terrified. Please, please, I don't. The caller came back, warm. Say hello, Julia. Calder's chest collapsed. He hadn't spoken to his ex-wife in months. He could hear her breathing, a sharp, scared little scrape. Evan, she whispered. Evan, are you there? The man chuckled, delighted with the geometry of the pain he'd constructed. Midnight, he said cheerfully. We'll talk at midnight. The line clicked off. The apartment swallowed the silence he left behind. Vega was already moving, calling Harrow, calling a trace that would go nowhere, pulling on her jacket. Calder didn't move. He couldn't. The room had gone as quiet as a ballfield after a dropped fly. The boy his father called shortstop stood inside the man he'd become, and for a moment neither knew how to breathe. Chapter 7. The Mastermind Revealed. The clock on Vega's dashboard glowed 10:47 p.m. as they cut across the Eisenhower, rain streaking the windshield like claws. Calder sat stiff in the passenger seat, fists knotted on his knees. The city blurred outside billboards, sodium lamps, a smear of wet neon. None of it mattered. Julia's voice still rang in his head. Evan, are you there? The words had broken something inside him that he didn't know was still intact. Vega drove like she was threading a needle, eyes flicking between lanes and mirrors. Harrow's putting units on Julia's condo. They'll keep a perimeter. He won't go near her place, Calder said. His voice sounded like someone else's. He wanted me to hear her. He's already moved her. Vega's jaw tightened. Then we worked the lead. He said midnight. That gives us an hour. An hour to what? Calder snapped. He's 2 steps ahead. He's always 2 steps ahead. Vega didn't flinch. Then we stop following and start cutting him off. At the precinct, Harrow had the war room lit up like a battlefield. Maps, photos, lines connecting names. Patrol chatter crackled on the radios. She stood at the center, calm but sharp, delegating with surgical precision. Units at Julia Calder's condo confirm empty, she said. No forced entry. No Julia. She's off the grid. Patel Jai hunched over his terminal, eyes red-rimmed. Signal from Calder's last call bounced through 4 towers before dumping to void. No dice on location, but he tapped his keyboard. A map zoomed in on the west side. Voice packet noise had bleed from a train horn. You can triangulate by sound. Only horns running at 10:30 near that corridor or the blue line, which stopped, Vega asked. Between Kedzie and Pulaski, Harrow circled the area on the map. Kepler Grove's in that radius. Calder felt the weight of it drop in his gut. He's circling us back. Then we circle tighter. Harrow said, we move at 11:30. Tactical sweep. If Julia's there, we pull her out. Calder's fists clenched. He'll be waiting for me. You're suspended, Harrow reminded him. You think he cares about my HR status? Calder shot back. This isn't about the department. This is about me. For a long moment, Harrow held his stare. Then she exhaled, a blade dulling just enough to bend. You ride with us. You don't move without Vega's nod. If you go cowboy, I'll cuff you myself. Understood. 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 The Kepler Grove mission loomed again at 11:32 p.m., black against the storm, every stained glass window boarded, the steeple a silhouette against restless clouds. SWAT found out along the perimeter, rifles angled, boots whispering across wet pavement. Rain beaded on Kevlar. Inside, the nave was dark, colder than before, as though something had sucked the heat out. The chalk symbols on the floor had been redrawn, fresher, sharper, layered over the old. And in the center, under a single hanging bulb, was a chair, empty, waiting. Clear right, a voice whispered in Calder's come. Clear left, another echoed. Vega moved ahead, her Glock steady. Calder followed, pulse drumming against his ribs. Then the bulb flickered. A hum crackled through hidden speakers, and the voice came again, no distortion this time. Smooth, measured, chillingly intimate. Welcome back, shortstop. Every officer froze. Calder's throat went dry. Where's Julia? He demanded. She's safe, for now. But this isn't about her. She's just leverage. No, Evan, this is about you and me. Show yourself, Vega barked. Gladly, the voice said. From the shadows at the far end of the nave, a figure stepped into the light. Rowan Bell. No robe, no beads, just a man in a dark jacket, smiling like the host of his own sermon. His eyes caught the light sharp, alive, gleaming with triumph. Vega's gun locked on him, hands where I can see them. Rowan raised his hands slowly, palms open, as if in mock surrender. I've waited 10 years for this. Calder's chest burned. It was you, Lila Montrose, Noel, Donnie, all of it. Of course it was, Rowan said, amused. But you never saw me, did you? Not really. You were too busy drowning in your own failure. That's what made it so delicious. I killed right under your nose, Evan, and you drowned yourself while I built an empire of ash. Why, Julia? Calder growled. Rowan tilted his head. Because she's part of you, and you needed a push. You're sharp when you're desperate, Evan, and I want you sharp for the finale. Vega stepped forward, gun steady. You're under arrest, Rowan. Get on your knees. Rowan's smile didn't waver. Marissa Vega, loyal to the end. Even after you dabbled in my circle. Vega's face hardened. That's over. No, Rowan said, his tone silk. It's never over. You cried in my circle. Remember, you begged the fire to take your guilt. That scar on your jaw, that was your penance. And Evan never knew. Until now. Calder's breath hitched. Marissa, don't, Vega snapped. Eyes locked on Rowan. Don't you dare let him split us. Rowan laughed, the sound echoing off the stone walls. You see, this is why I chose you, Evan. Because you and I we're the same. Obsessed. Broken. You chase death like it's oxygen. And me, I deliver it. The tack team shifted, fingers tense on triggers. Harrow's voice crackled in Calder's earpiece. Hold fire. He wants a stage. Rowan took another step forward. Midnight approaches, and when it strikes, Julia dies. Unless, of course, you play. He held up a phone. On its screen was a live video feed. Julia bound to a chair, gagged, fear in her eyes. The timestamp ticked 11:47. Calder's heart thundered. Where is she? Rowan's smile widened. Where you'll never find her without me. The church is just the stage, Evan. The real game waits in the ashes. He tossed the phone. It clattered at Calder's feet, looping Julia's muffled sobs. And then Rowan raised his hands higher, smiling like a man who'd already won. "So, detective, do you want to arrest me? Or do you want to save her?" The room bristled with gun barrels. The TAC team, a hair's trigger from ending it. Calder stared at Rowan Bell, his monster, his ghost. His mirror felt the clock pounding in his ears. 11:49 p.m. He had 11 minutes to choose. Chapter 8, The Ashes of Midnight. 11:49 p.m. The phone's glow lit Calder's face pale as bone. Julia's image looped, gagged and trembling, her eyes wide and wet. The time stomp ticked in the corner like a detonator. 11 minutes. The nave of the Kepler Grove mission pulsed with tension SWAT rifles trained on Rowan Bell. Harrow's voice crackling in Calder's ear. Viga's pistol steady, but her jaw taut. Rowan stood with his hands raised, a conductor at the crescendo of his own symphony. Calm, composed, a smile that didn't crack. "Well," he asked softly, "will you cage me, Evan, or chase the flame?" Calder's voice scraped raw. "Where is she?" Rowan's grin widened. "Midnight will show you. Answer the question." Vega barked, stepping forward. Rowan's gaze flicked to her, almost pitying. Still protecting him, still blind to the truth. "Drop it," Harrow hissed in Calder's. "Come, we can force his hand, contain him here." But Calder's gut knew better. Arresting Rowan meant Julia's death. This wasn't negotiation, it was theater. Rowan would let Julia burn before surrendering the final act. He looked at Vega, her eyes locked on his. The silence between them carried 10 years of scars, trust, betrayal, and survival. She gave the slightest nod. "Do it." Calder bent, scooped up the phone, and pressed play. The feed stabilized Julia bound in a chair, a clock behind her reading 11:50. The room wasn't the mission. Cinder block walls, exposed pipes, a low ceiling. Calder knew that room. His blood went cold. "The basement," he whispered. "The old boiler room." Rowan's smile was confirmation enough. "Move," Harrow snapped in his ear. The TAC team surged toward the vestry hall, boots pounding. Vega shoved Calder forward. "Go," but Rowan didn't flinch. He simply lowered his arms and chuckled. "Run, shortstop. Run, like you always do." 11:51 p.m. The boiler room door was chained. SWAT S-breacher swung the ram once, twice, the metal groaning under impact. On the third strike, the chain snapped. The door flew wide. Heat punched out like a fist. Inside, Julia sat bound to a chair. A branded jagged sun, glowing red, hung inches from her chest, suspended by another rail rig. Propane tanks hissed. A timer ticked on a jury-rigged circuit. 8 minutes, 53 seconds. "Julia," Calder shouted, rushing forward. Her muffled scream tore through the gag. "Disarm." Vega barked. SWAT operators flooded in. 2 on the tanks, 2 on the rig. Calder dropped to his knees in front of Julia, tearing the gag free. "Evan," she sobbed, voice cracked. "He said you wouldn't." "I'm here," Calder said, fingers shaking as he worked the knots on her wrists. "I've got you. I swear, timers live." A tech shouted. Pressure plate under the Chereni shift could trigger the failsafe. "Copy," another said, cutting wires with surgical precision. Sweat glistened on their brows, despite the cold rain dripping through the old ceiling. 5 minutes, Vega said, eyes locked on the countdown. "Move faster." Julia's hands came free. She clutched Calder's wrists, nails biting his skin. "He said you'd let me die." "I won't," Calder whispered. His throat burned. "I won't miss again." 11:56 p.m. The rig hissed. One tank was shut, but the second valve was jammed. The red glow of the brand brightened. Clamps locking, a tech yelled. Vega's gun barked once, twice bang bang. Sparks flew as her bullets shattered the clamp assembly. The iron sagged to the floor, glowing like hell's ember. For minutes, chairs still wired, the tech said. One wrong lift, and it trips the igniter. Calder's mind raced. He scanned the wires green to the plate, red to the timer, black looping to both. He remembered nights in the academy, diffusal drills. He remembered his father teaching him how to splice lamp cord in the garage. Steady hands, even when Calder fumbled. "Cut the red," he muttered. "Which red?" the tech demanded. "There are two." "Third junction," Calder snapped. The tech hesitated. Sweat ran down his cheek, then snipped. The timer froze at 2:43. A silence fell like a dropped curtain. "She's clear," the tech barked. Julia collapsed into Calder's arms. He held her tight, burying his face in her hair, feeling her sobs shake through him. For the first time in years, his heart felt hollow, only for a second. Then Vega's voice cut through. "Where's Belle?" Rowan was gone. The nave was empty. No forced exit, no shattered windows, just the echo of laughter playing from hidden speakers, ghostly and mocking. "Son of a bitch," Vega muttered. "Every exit's covered," Harrow said. Storming in, he didn't walk out. Calder's gaze shot to the ceiling. The mission's rafters stretched high and black. Too many shadows. "He's still here." 11:59 p.m. The rafters exploded in motion. Rowan dropped from the shadows like a spider, slamming into a TAC officer and wrenching his rifle away in one fluid movement. "Down!" Harrow shouted. Gunfire erupted short, sharp bursts. Sparks flew from stone. Rowan moved with terrifying calm, his stolen rifle sweeping arcs of fire that pinned the team. Calder shoved Julia behind a pew, drawing the sidearm Harrow had reluctantly returned to him. Vega dove beside him, Glock ready. Rowan's voice boomed over the chaos. "This is the fire you've chased all your life, Evan. Can't you feel it? The clarity, the purpose." Calder fired. A round chipped stone inches from Rowan's head. "Clarity's overrated," Calder growled. Rowan vanished behind a column, reappeared on the balcony. He moved like the building was his body, every beam and shadow an extension of his will. "Come on, shortstop," he taunted. "Save your team, save your ex-wife, be the hero you always wanted to be." Calder and Vega split, flanking up twin staircases. Harrow barked orders below, keeping Julia shielded. "Keep him talking." Vega hissed into comms. Calder climbed, heart hammering, pistol steady. "You think this is about me?" he shouted. "It's always been about you. You needed me. Without me, you're just another lunatic with matches." Rowan laughed, sharp and delighted. "Without me, you're nothing but failure." 12:02 a.m. They met on the balcony, moonlight slicing through cracks in the boards. Rain dripped from shattered glass above. Rowan stood at the center, rifle leveled. Calder and Vega advanced, pistols raised. "This ends now," Vega said. Rowan's grin was feral. "You're right." He swung the rifle toward Julia below. Calder didn't think he fired. The shot caught Rowan in the shoulder. The rifle clattered away. Rowan roared, lunged at Calder. The two men collided, slamming into the railing. The wood cracked under their weight. Rain lashed in as they grappled, fists, elbows, teeth. "You can't kill me," Rowan snarled, blood at his lips. "I'm already inside you." Calder drove his fist into Rowan's jaw. Again. "Get the hell out." Rowan twisted, grabbed Calder's pistol hand, forcing the muzzle toward Calder's own chest. They strained, inches from death, breath hot, eyes locked. Then bang, the shot echoed. Rowan's body jerked. Vega stood behind him, her Glock smoking. Her shot had found his spine. Rowan sagged, eyes wide with something like surprise. Calder shoved him off. Rowan toppled over the railing, crashing onto the nave floor below with a wet, final thud. Silence fell. Only the rain whispered. 12:07 a.m. Medics swarmed Julia. SWAT secured the mission. Harrow gave clipped orders, voice steadier than her eyes. Vega stood beside Calder, both of them soaked, bloodied, trembling. "It's over," she said. Calder stared down at Rowan's crumpled form, the cult leader, the ghost of his past, the man who had burned his failures into flesh, dead. "And yet, is it?" Calder whispered, because Rowan's smile lingered in his mind, even in death. 12:29 a.m. Back at the precinct, Harrow filed the official line. Rowan Bell, cult leader, orchestrator of ritual killings, dead in a shootout. Julia safe, survivors scarred, but alive. Case closed. But as Calder sat in the dim quiet of the locker room, phone in hand, something buzzed. A new message, unknown number. His chest iced over. He opened it. One sentence. That was only the first flame. Calder's grip tightened until his knuckles went white. The phone slipped from his hand, clattering to the tile. From the shadows of the room, Vega's voice. "What is it?" Calder stared at the message. His pulse thundered in his ears. Rowan was dead, but the game wasn't over. It had only just begun.